Hi, welcome to the Small Shed. This week we're revisiting an old project that stalled for a while. Let's go have a look at it. Now you may recall, it's probably getting on for 18 months ago now, it's certainly well over a year, that I made some cars for Wood Turning Club who were going to have a downhill sort of race, and I came up with 3 different versions. Obviously lockdown caused major problems, and it is not until August 2021 now that we're meeting again, and the first meeting, which I thought I was going to miss because I'd be on holiday, but in fact they brought the meeting slightly forward, is the one where they're going to test the cars. So I thought it was worth just dusting them off at the moment, give them a bit of a clean up, give them a service effectively, because they've been stuck in a plastic bag in the corner of the shed for probably over a year, 18 months almost. Now I did 3 different versions. I did the one that was the one that we had a drawing for. There were certain constraints. They were length and wheel diameter, I think, were the constraints, and as we will see in probably upcoming videos of another project, I immediately adopted the Adrian Newey, who is a Formula 1 designer, attitude of reading the rules of the competition to see what they didn't say, not what they did say. It had to be a certain length, but I decided that the more mass it would have should possibly give it a better start, so I moved on to the second and third versions. That one was what would appear to be a 3-wheel version, but it's got the minimum length same, or maximum length the same, but I just did a straightforward round shape and cut the bottom off it, and see how that one goes. And then I started reading up on American channels where they race these similar sorts of cars, only much more sophisticated than this, where they were talking about the fact that if you can get the mass further back, you've got a better start, because when you start at the top of the hill the mass is higher up than if it were that shape. It's all a bit technical, and it will be interesting to see whether or not this is all a load of garbage and somebody comes along with something else that's totally different, closer to that, and wins. The consensus generally was to have the wheels slightly cambered, because that way they would tend to push outwards on the outer part of the pin rather than on the inner part where there's more friction. And again, the heavier you go, the more friction you get, so there was all that sort of thing. I put graphite on all of the joints, but some of the pins have got loose and the wheels have become far too wobbly. So I'm just going to go around now, re-graphite everything, check that they're all working, check that the wheels are all in position, and then I'm going to take them up on Monday. This is Sunday today, so it's tomorrow, and run these off and see first of all which one of these 3 goes the furthest. And I'm putting my money at the moment on that one. I think it's going to be 1, 2, 3, but I might be wrong. Whether or not any of those get any further than anybody else's remains to be seen. It's a matter of conjecture, and whether or not I win a tenner or not. As I say, the exercise in the first place was one in wood turning, because I'm not a huge wood turner. I just thought I'd have a play. So let's give it a bit of a clean up now, and then we'll pack them up in their bag and take them up, and I'll show you how they get on in the real world. What seems to have happened is that the pins have come out quite a way, for some reason while they've been rattling around. As I say, I don't want the wheels to be too wobbly. And then when we've done that, we'll put some more graphite on. That back one is a long way out. Right, all I've got to do now then is find the graphite paste or dust. Now I might not have found the graphite dust yet, but I have surprisingly found the original email and instructions. And what that gives you, they gave a sample, which is the one I built. Apart from the fact I've put my exhaust pipe on the opposite side, that is pretty much exactly what they showed. I've made it a fraction longer, but I think I'm still within the 160mm long, which is the limit. It's pretty much on that limit. Whether or not, it depends how rigorously they judge, but if they say it's too long, I could always pull that wheel off, bash the pin in, and or leave the pin out, and it would still be right. The rules said I would like you all to make a wooden car, racing car, from turned parts. You can use your own design or the one attached, so I've done both. It can either be a spit turned body or a full cigar shaped, 1960 style. Well, I don't quite know what that meant because I'm not that well into things, but to me that's a full cigar shape. Those were turned on the lathe, so I'm assuming it's a spit turned body. There is an argument. This one is perhaps the most arguable of the lot, in that cutting the bottom off it has made it cease to be cylindrical. We'll get onto that one when we get there and see what they say. Maximum length 160mm, which we've got. Maximum wheel diameter 40mm, which is what I've got. Must include a wooden driver, which I've done. Must be all wood except for 4 screws to hold wheels onto the body. In fact, I've used nails, but again, I don't think there should be a problem on that. You can leave the wood or you can decorate to your own satisfaction, and in fact I've just put all these with the microcrystalline wax. The cars will be freewheeled down a wooden incline approximately 30 inches long and 12 inches high, down to 0 and 8 inch wide. Right, so that's it. That's all the last bit of tuning done. We can't do any more than take them along and see how we get on. So the first round of judging was the beauty pageant for the prettiest car. Now, I'd started from day one not really being interested in that, because I was far more interested in function over form, and had spent an awful lot of time learning about how the best way to go about making something like this work. There were some pretty spectacular ones there, both traditional and like the Del Boy Reliant. I couldn't really see a lot of wood turning in that one, but it was still a bit of fun. They set the ramp up, it was just a bit of plywood on a bit of 3x2, and therein lay a bit of a problem, because it was a little bit inclined to throw them off sideways anyway, irrespective of whether or not you'd got your axle design straight. My first favourite went pretty much off to one side straight away, followed by the second one, which also went off to the side. Some of that is down to the fact I hadn't tried them out on a ramp. I was originally going to do it down at Men in Sheds, but of course we were in lockdown when this was built, and so I hadn't actually run them, which was a bit of a failing, to see how it would work. But everyone was suffering the same, and it's the thing that if I was doing this again, I would spend a bit more time on tuning it. It can be done to make sure they steer straight. But so far the indications were that mine were going reasonably well in terms of speed, but it was getting that distance in a straight line that was the difficult bit. But everybody else, as I say, was suffering. That one seemed to go quite well and looked like being the favourite at the point. And some of them, which looked very nice, clearly showed that if you don't pay attention to friction, you really don't get very far at all. And it was a fairly simple example of how the difference between two of them is. That one's gone about 6 feet, the other one went about 30 or 40. Del Boy tried hard but didn't get very far, and then it was turn for my last shot of the dice with the big one.
I think that about the time, wasn't it?
Whoa! Oh.
Nice.
So almost as expected, not quite. The one that travelled the least distance, even though it went off sideways, it was never going to go as far as the other two, was that one, which was sort of tending to prove, given that they'd all got the same wheels and axles, that weight is an important part of it. That one went less far, mainly because it came off, but again I don't think it was ever going to be as far down the track as that one. Now that one has actually only got effectively 3 bearing surfaces for the wheels, so whether that's helped I don't know, but certainly that one was the winner. That one did the business for us. So there we are. We won, which was partly the point of it, but not entirely. The main point with anything like this, as far as I'm concerned, is the journey, not the destination. And this took me on quite an interesting journey, learning about the sciences involved, if you like, in the amount of getting the friction down to minimal with the graphite powder, minimizing bearing surfaces, getting weight in, getting it in the right place. They were all things that I sort of half knew but learnt a lot more about. And also seeing all the American clubs that are doing this sort of thing with different types of wooden car, but huge groups of people in schools and that doing them as like a hobby, running probably 10 times that distance, much faster. They've got bigger ramps admittedly, but again that difference in culture and size of a country and how much it will support minority interests like that. So for me it's been a good exercise. It got me through the very early weeks of lockdown and sort of set the scene of keeping me working through that, so it was worth it from that. And it's interesting to be seeing that this is the first meeting we'd had at the Wood Turning Club, starting to come back out of lockdown, and things are getting sort of back a little bit more to normal. Hope it was of interest. Look forward to seeing you next week. We'll try and do something different again. See you then. Bye.